Yeah. Hey. All right. Hey. Yeah, I mean.
So we about to take off.
Hey. Please do remain calm. About to run against it and with a little bit of soul, no times.
Welcome to Please Remain Calm. I'm Ben Gonzalez.
And I'm Daniel Gonzalez. Before we start, guys, as always, the opinions expressed here on the Please Remain Calm podcast are our own. They do not reflect the opinions of the Los Angeles City Fire Department or the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services.
And you might have noticed we are in another studio right now. We're in New Digs. To explain, we've switched studios. This is actually the same complex of studios that we were in. We're at the Top Tree Studios now in West Hollywood. It's great. And they have, I don't know, what is it, like five or six different rooms set up. So there's another show recording where we've been recording, the Blue Room. So we're now here in the man cave.
I guess so.
That's what he calls it. Yeah. Wood panel.
In case you guys wanted to behind the scenes, what's going on. Anyway,
I don't know if it confuses people to see us in different rooms.
I don't think people care, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know in the comments, you guys.
Yeah, again, as always, man, thank you guys for continuing to listen to the podcast, for continuing to share with your friends and family. Like I feel like I'm saying it every show, but every week that we have, outside of the studio, I get people coming up, asking me, about the podcast and stuff like that at hospitals. So more and more people are seeing it, hearing it, talking about it. We really appreciate that. We really want you guys to continue doing that. To help kind of spread the word, we do have the new t-shirts that should be up within the next few days here. I'm sorry, guys. I've been taking a class for inspector, hopefully taking a promotional exam pretty soon. So that's been chewing up a lot of life with family and stuff like that. So I will get working on that this weekend. So hopefully we'll have that Shopify account up for you guys, so you can order some t-shirts and stickers and magnets and stuff like other merch stuff that we have to purchase. Yeah. We got anything else?
Yeah, that's the best way to support the show. I don't know about like other new business and stuff. With this show today, I mean, we're known for being pretty upbeat.
Yeah.
Positive topics. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't necessarily call this downbeat or a downer, really.
Yeah, but this is I don't know, maybe a little solemn, a serious topic. We talk about death on this show. We go there. That's a part of this job, part of life, but especially part of this job and this profession. And we're going to talk about that again. We were going to talk about line of duty deaths. There have been a few on the job since Danny's come on in his career, and since we were both trying to get on earlier.
Yeah, we had for those of you guys that follow, obviously, me, my social media, and the 63s page. And actually, I did post it on our podcast, TikTok, and page. I had a good friend and mentor, Dexter McDaniel, had passed away just a few weeks ago, and he was able to go to his funeral. He actually retired from the fire department a couple years ago. Was diagnosed with ALS about under a year ago, and just quickly deteriorated and passed away. But I went to his funeral, and it got me thinking about like fire department funerals, and how like big of a production and big of an event it is when a firefighter dies and you put on a funeral. And so I thought that was interesting. And since the pandemic, and since I've been on for, going on 18 plus years now, I've been to a few different types of funerals.
Yeah.
Cause there's different like levels to it as well. Like for somebody that dies in the line of duty at a structure fire, it is like the biggest, grandest spectacle of a funeral that you could possibly have. I went to a couple of those early on in my career, and that is like, I mean, it's like what you see in the movies, like at the end of
all the bagpipes go in.
Yeah, like at the end of Backdraft,
Tower of the Ladders.
The whole city is out there. You know what I mean? Everyone's dressed to the tilt. And not only that, but you've got like fire engines and representatives from fire departments all across the country.
Yeah, that's right.
So the processional from like the church to the burial and stuff like that is this massive, massive caravan of fire engines with their lights on. And, like in LA City, we had like one of the earliest firefighter funerals that I went to was for Jamie Foster, and we'll talk about what happened with her. But we had like a processional where it was like thousands of firefighters walking, along, you had the fire engine with the casket on it going down, and then just like blocks and blocks and blocks of firefighters in full dress uniform, walking slowly behind the casket, and then a whole line of fire engines behind that. And I just remember like walking in that processional and like looking around and thinking like, oh, holy shit, man. Like I'm a part of something like massive here, like massive. It's amazing, Yeah. And I remember having an actual like digital camera, because it was like before our phones had like legit cameras on them and stuff, right? But like taking a video and like holding it up and looking back and then watching it back later and just thinking to myself like, damn, what a fucking amazing thing that I just like was involved in.
Yeah.
And I didn't have anything to do with it. I was just like, a spectator there, just another person there. But you could feel like the level of like reverence and respect that people have for an event like that. So going to Dex's, and then there's guys and gals that die that are current firefighters that die off duty,
Right.
I mean, shit, we've heard, a number of stories from people that have been injured off duty on this show alone. And it does happen, man. People, die at home, have heart attacks, car accidents, different, suicides, drug overdoses, all kinds, you name it. People die a bunch of different ways. And then you have like what we had with Dexter, guys that passed away, guys that are retired already, right? Yeah. And then, pass on, after retirement. I've always like respected or felt good about the respect that we pay to people, even retirees. Every morning or whenever anybody dies, that was related to that was on the fire service. And the fire department is notified of it. We get a death notice to the fire station. So you'll hear 10 bells ring out, right? Ding, 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 10 bells. And that's a death notice that came over the teletype. There's a whole bell system. If I haven't mentioned it before, 3 bells is a run, 4 bells is a special notice, that type of thing. Or 3 bells is taps, 5 bells is a run, and 10 bells is a death notice. So anytime you hear 10 bells go out, you go over to the teletype and you grab the death notice. And it basically gives like a breakdown of this person, their name, when were they appointed to the fire department, when did they retire, if they did retire, when were they born, when did they die, where did they die, like what city, and what was their last assignment. And when that prints out, doesn't matter what's going on in the day or whatever, somebody goes over, it's usually the rookie or the low man on the totem pole or whoever's close to the front office. You go and you grab it, you grab the microphone and you announce it. You read the whole thing over the PA so that everybody that's working that day knows that this guy who did this same shit that we do passed away today, and everyone can stop and pay their own little respects in their own way. Sometimes it's just like, it's usually people you don't know, what I mean? Right. John Smith,
especially retired,
appointed in 1966 and took a service pension in 1990. Half the guys weren't even born yet and stuff like this. So it's like, oh, Tom Smith, whatever, at Fire Station 45 or some shit that doesn't even exist anymore, right? Yeah. So, but then sometimes 10 bells will come out and they'll get on, they'll be like, all right, death notice, Captain 1, Tim Smith, and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh, Timmy Smith? Dude, did you hear Timmy Smith died? Oh, dude, when did he retire? Oh, he retired like 10 years. Man, that dude was cool as fuck. He was one of my instructors in the drill tower. He was, the bull fireman in my first house, at 10s or whatever.
But it hits home, yeah.
It hits home a little bit. And then it really gets you thinking about like, I mean, I guess just like death does with anybody in any situation, really gets you thinking about your experience with this person and stuff like that. And so the way that we treat people who have been on the fire department after they pass away, I like it. I like the respect that we give to people.
Reverence. And,
sometimes, because then you'll read it out at that point, right? And then that paper goes into the new material binder, right? So every day at lineup, Like before we start our shift, like let's say we get in at 6:30, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, usually exercise, have a little breakfast, shoot the shit with the guys in the kitchen, drink your coffee, all that stuff, right? Read the paper. And then the captain will kind of make an announcement of when we're going to have a lineup for the day, right? Usually it's like every station does it. Every captain has their own preference, but usually like at 6:3s, we'll do it at like 10 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
That way it gives you time to get out there, exercise, and get showered up and changed
Do
up
all
and
your
stuff like
stuff,
that. We
yeah.
have lineup.
Mhm.
Lineup, we go over staffing for the next 9 days, right? So you know when your overtime days are, when, you know, if you got a trade, if you took a day
Mhm.
off, everybody knows what's going on with staffing.
Right.
And then you go through new material, right? New stuff that the department has put out since your last shift that hasn't been read out to you guys. And the captains read out all the new material. These death notices go into the new material so that each shift gets read out the death notice so that everyone in the station knows that this person passed and, you know, is aware of it at least. Sometimes when you're at lineup, you know, you get 12 guys in a kitchen and Cap's going through, you know, all right, hey, we got new gurneys, you know, the new gurneys are coming out in 2 months and blah, 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 blah. And the guys on the end of the table might be talking about, you know, the new boat he just bought, like under their breath, they're whispering to each other and da-da-da-da, right? And all right, next on the new material, we got, you know, whatever, tree trimmers are coming, blah, blah, blah. And a couple other guys are chit-chatting. When the death notice comes up, it's, hey, boys, listen up. We got a death notice here, da-da-da-da, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's, everybody knows just to shut the fuck up and listen to this notice right here and give this person a little bit of respect. And I remember one time distinctly when I was a young fireman, being at a fire station that was happening, right? The captain was reading a death notice. And one of the old timer firefighters was the one that turned and said, hey, pay attention, man. Keep it down. And kind of snapped at the firefighters. And one of them kind of mumbled something under his breath. And he goes, hey, dude, in 40 years, somebody's going to pull out a paper with your name on it. All right. And I think your family and you and your kids and everybody would want the people that are sitting around this table to give you the same respect I'm asking you to give this guy. Yeah. And to me, it was like, being a young fireman, it was like, oh, shit. I never even really thought of that or put it into that kind of perspective, man. Like,
yeah.
Like, I don't know this guy, but I know that he put in 30 years on the fire department working his ass off in a time when it was way harder to be a firefighter. You know what I mean? Yeah. Shit was way heavier. You know, all the fittings were brass. They weren't Pyrolite. You know, we didn't have turnout pants. You know, you didn't have, you know.
We talked about that when Dad was on the show, man.
Yeah, man.
He had it crazy.
Yeah, it was a different time back then. So, and they're pioneers of this thing of this profession that we love so much, you know? So hearing that, you know, old timer put it in that perspective to me always kind of was like, okay, yeah. And damn, I do like the way we have respect for, you know, fallen firefighters, people that have died. Yeah. All that being said, I thought I would tell a couple stories about some line of duty deaths and deaths on the fire department that had an effect on me coming up. One of the first ones, and I really actually like what the LAFD is doing with their Instagram page on a lot of these, on the anniversaries of some of these.
I'm seeing those now. They're posting, and they'll show tell the original story of what happened, show the guys like his yearbook picture. Yeah, not necessarily like sometimes photos from the incident, I guess too, right?
Yeah, some of them. You know, and just the old photos and the old stories about how things, you know, happened and were done. And another thing you got to understand too is, like, I would imagine with most fire departments too, a lot of like the rules and regulations and stuff like that we have, and safety stuff that we have, is all reactionary to stuff that happened, you know, on scene of fires. Mm-hmm.
I remember too, when we were kids, our dad had this LAFD yearbook that had pictures of all the stations, all the members, but it had a memorial section that covered every line of duty death from the beginning, from the horse days. And it showed exactly what happened. It was a long, detailed story. That's the other thing too, is there's, you know, books of investigations of every single time anything like this has happened.
And some of the stories are crazy. I mean, when you go all the way back to the beginning of the fire department, I can tell you how many guys died falling through from the pole hole. hustling to the pole and misstep and fall down
Fell
the
off
pole,
the engine en route.
fall off the engine en route,
Yeah.
get squished because the ladder truck jackknifed and squished the guy. We've had water tenders fall over, that were fully extended.
Yeah.
Not even to mention the people that, got sick, a flu after being at a structure fire, or a heart attack on scene of a structure. All these different stories
All
of how
kinds of stuff. Yep.
you could keel over and die at a structure fire. One of the earliest stories, and actually the LAFD posted this not too long ago because the anniversary of it was not too long ago. The heck is his name? Thomas O. Morse. So my first house on the fire department was Fire Station 26, right? Which is on
place.
Western, right near the 10 freeway. Pretty busy firehouse. Anytime, any place, is their motto. Go to a lot of structure fires, and there's a lot of history of really solid firefighters coming out of that place. I was actually really stoked to get that spot as my first house, and the crew I was with was amazing. I learned a lot when I was there.
Yeah.
And any fire station that you go to, man, the kitchen is kind of like where they commemorate all the fires they've been to, and like, newspaper clippings and stuff like that.
Yeah. You see a lot of frame photos of structure fires going back like 30 years and shit.
As long back as the station has been fighting fire, you'll see old ass photos of old fires,
they'll be labeled with like the little old label maker
labels
labels on them.
Yeah, little Dymo tape label on
Yep.
it when the fire was and stuff. Or you might have like legends from that fire station, Captain such and such did, 25 years here. He's a legend on the job, all this stuff, right? Well, at 26 is the kitchen and like a TV room area is kind of just like one big area, right?
Okay.
It's not really separated by anything. And on the wall, which is like the backside of the refrigerators, it's just like an open wall where they have a bunch of frames and different things on there. Well, the centerpiece of that, which is like the main thing in the kitchen, is a huge framed memorial to Thomas O. Morse. Okay. And so I'm going to read this story that the LAFD posted. This story is what's printed out underneath the photo of Thomas O. Morse.
It's crazy.
So I'm just going to read it off here. At 10:47 p.m. on January 17th, 1961, the LAFD Westlake Signal Office dispatch engines 45, 26, 68, and Truck 26 and Battalion 3 Chief James Miller to a reported structure fire at 1101 South Crenshaw Boulevard. Truck Company 26 was soon on scene to report smoke showing from the attic vents of a 2-story commercial building and called for one additional truck company. Truck 26 laddered the building with its aerial, and fireman Thomas O. Morse was the first to climb onto the roof. The roof immediately gave way as Morse stepped onto it, and he fell into the fully involved attic. Somehow, Morse managed to pull himself back onto the roof. No one on the fire ground was aware of his plight until spectators began screaming that a fireman on the roof was on fire. Morse's turnout coat and pants were burning as the flames behind him roared high over his head. Fireman William A. Burnridge of Engine Company 68 was the first to see Morse. He immediately ran up the aerial and pulled Morse from the roof. He threw himself onto Morse and, with his bare hands, beat out the flames. He then slid the flailing Morse down the aerial ladder. Morse and Burnridge were taken to Central Receiving Hospital, which is downtown LA. Morse was burned over 70% of his body with second and third degree burns. Burnridge had second degree burns on the palms and fingers of both hands. At the hospital, Tom told Chief Miller, quote, "I sure want you to pass my thanks along to Burnridge. He was all over me. He laid on me, he patted out the flames with his hands, and he kept the fire out of my face and prevented me from falling off the ladder." End quote. For nearly 2 months, he battled to survive his burns. Fireman Thomas Morse was rarely alone as LAFD members of all ranks stood vigil to assist he and his family with any possible need. Alas, on the evening of March 11, 1961, our brother, Tom, passed peacefully with his family and heartbroken colleagues at his side. That story imprinted, on that, in that frame with a big picture of Thomas Morse at my first house, that it's known as a firehouse, that goes to fires, that kicks ass when they're there, that's aggressive, that has an aggressive roof team. And my job is to be part of the roof team. Right.
And you're looking at this guy who fell in and pulled himself out.
I can't tell
That's
you
crazy.
how many times I sat, because it's right across from the kitchen tables, right? Middle of the night, after I was done with my inventory stuff, just like closing everything up, doing my final cleaning ups and putting out the bread and butter and toast and all that stuff for the morning.
Yeah, stuff.
Getting all the coffee ready for the morning, all that last minute rookie shit that I would do at the end of the night. And I would sit there on the table and I would stare at this picture of this dude and read that story and read it over and over and think like, fuck, man, this is a possibility. This is something I have to plan for. Like, what would happen if that happened to me? You know, on top of that, at 26s, I had a guy who worked there with me who was actually a third house rookie when I first got there as a first house rookie, who had fallen through the roof in his first house at 35s, fell up to his arms like this into a fully involved attic, almost the same exact thing.
Yeah, I know.
So, and I don't want to say his name because I've asked him to come on the podcast. He doesn't want to talk about it, so I had almost like these two, like I had this thing that happened to this guy, obviously a long time ago. We didn't have turnout pants and all that stuff, and he really, really got burned. Yeah. And then I got this other guy who like the shit just happened to him. Like it was the event that we talked about in the drill tower. Like this just happened, you guys. This is real, you know. Yeah. Now I'm working at this station with this dude, you know. So I got to have some really good conversations with him about it and stuff like that. And
I remember him. I was a medic with him.
Yeah. It you know, it's just crazy. It was a crazy place to work, you know, just in general, being first house and all that stuff and all the stuff that I learned there. But as far as like learning about like death on the job and the possibilities that could happen, like being at that place with that firefighter and this story, you know, in my face every night was a real eye opener for what could happen.
For sure. Then you go to another station that had an even more recent death, which was like the first firefighter or LAFD death that I remember happening when we were trying to go through fire academy and like thinking about getting on the job. And then, cause it was 98, right?
You talking about Dupey?
Yeah. Dupey.
Yeah. So, went through, you know, probation and, got off probation, went to 9s. And there's, you know, things that have happened to people at 9s too. At Captain there, who's one of the first that got, same thing. He fell through a floor, got really badly burned in his legs. It's actually the fire. One of the main reasons why we started to get turnout pants in the late 80s. You know, so like every station you go to, there's a story of somebody, you know, something serious happening to somebody at that station. But but you're right. You know, I left, was at 9s for a few years, went over to 63s for a year. And then, you know, my good friend Chris Ferrer got hired and was coming off probation. We were looking for a spot to work together in 57s in South Central Battalion 13. Was a spot that we were like, oh, there's a couple spots here. Let's go. Same kind of deal, man. You get to 57s. There's this big, like shadow box, plexiglass, like shadow box with the journal from the day that Dupey died. So he was a captain. He's in charge of filling out the journal for the fire company.
Maybe we should explain the journal.
Yeah. So with redundancy in our record keeping, we have a journal that we keep. Every unit keeps a journal, a handwritten journal of every single call that we went on, what time the call was at, what happened at that incident. If anything significant happened, you keep notes in there. That way, if there's any kind of catastrophic, you know, crashing of our computer system and all that stuff, we actually have paper, you know.
And you still have that
record.
Now, right?
Still have that now.
Still practice. That's another thing too. There's a few things that are like real old school things that never have changed for a reason. Because like when you were describing before, the death notices come on a teletype, and people are probably listening like, what the hell is a teletype? Yeah. Even though there's iPads everywhere and everything, there is still a freaking printer in every fire station that will go boop, 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 and beep out and print out where the fire is, the incident, whatever it is that gets sent.
Yeah, and sometimes that happens. Like sometimes we'll get a run, you know, the bells go off and it'll come out over the PA system, and then we have nothing on our MDC in the rig. You know, so it's like shit.
You need it. Yeah.
You know, so then you go grab the teletype printout, and then at least you have a printout.
Yeah.
But it happens, man. Electronics go down, things crash. You know, our entire metro, you know, dispatch system has crashed before. You know, that's why they have backups in different areas. You know, I remember one time, I might have even told this story, but you know, all of Metro went down. They had to bring a helicopter to City Hall, pick all the dispatchers up and fly them over to 106s or whatever that is, where they had the backup OCD. So it happens, you know. But yeah, so we keep those journals. So at 57s, they have in this plexiglass case the journal from the day that Captain Dupey passed away. And as a captain, he's in charge of like filling out, what the roster is for the day and stuff like that. And every time we come back, and actually that day, he had put in transfer requests to different places. A place that busy, especially when you promote as a captain, on an engine captain, you got a little bit of time on. It's really busy. It's a busy spot, and it's busy to be a captain. You go to a lot of fires, can wear down on your body and stuff like that. So the turnover for captains there, in a place like that is pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so that day he had put in a couple of brownies for different spots.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this fire at night that took his life. And I'll read a little breakdown of that fire as well. Captain Dupey was assigned to Engine 57, which was involved in interior firefighting operations at the time of his death. First alarm assignment consisted of Task Force 66, Rescue 866, Engine 57, Engine 46, Light Force 33, Engine 34, and Battalion 13. It was dispatched as a reported structure fire at 02:20 hours, so the middle of the night, right? 2:20 in the morning. Engine 33 added themselves. Task Force 66 was first on scene. If you know the area at all, this address on Western is actually just right around the corner from Fire Station 66. So Fire Station 57, Engine 57 was the second in engine company. Forcible entry was initiated. Truck 66 got through the front door approximately 4 to 7 minutes after the call came out. 66s went to the roof. Engine 66 followed by Engine 57 and Engine 46 advanced hand lines through the front door. 3 members of Engine 33 quickly followed with 10-foot pike poles and started doing interior truck work. Advancing the hand lines was made difficult because there was considerable storage. It was almost like a maze in there. There was a lot of partitioning off of areas and a lot of storage inside. Once inside, Engine 57 made a right turn in the manufacturing area, located a small amount of fire in the mezzanine. However, they were unable to effectively reach the seat of the fire because of the mezzanine. Engine 57's engineers stayed in the hall area and started putting lights so that they could see their way out because it was a sealed building and there was a lot of smoke, very difficult to see. Additional units requested through Metro. Let me just get to the bread and butter here. At approximately 2:38 hours, Division 2 commander arrived on scene without a staff assistant, assumed command. At approximately 2:47 hours, on-call deputy department commander arrived on scene. As the fire continued to escalate, the command post and several companies on scene became convinced that a member from Engine 33 was missing. This delayed the realization that Engine 57's captain was also missing, which took several minutes to be resolved. Several members reported Captain Dupey communicated on the tactical channel. Further investigation is necessary to determine the nature of this communication. Captain Dupey did not activate the emergency trigger on his radio. A member from Engine 15 inadvertently activated his emergency trigger on his radio. At approximately 2:57 hours, IC was notified of a red alert, which is currently known as a Mayday. And at approximately 2:58 hours, Captain Dupey was found by the rapid intervention crew with his PAL device sounding. The rapid intervention crew removed Captain Dupey through the rear of the building. Medical treatment, including CPR, was initiated, and he was transported via rescue ambulance to Daniel Freeman Hospital. Essentially, Captain Dupey took his crew in the front door, and like I said, it was like a maze in there, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, somehow, what they think happened was that one of the roof team members, PAL device, which is the personal alarm locator device, that thing used to be strapped to our SCBAs, and it could be removed before. Now it's like strapped; it's part of your SCBA, like hardwired in there. But before, it was a separate thing that you hooked onto your SCBA.
Right.
Well, when you're up on the roof and you're working and stuff like that, and you're cutting, you're pulling stuff, you're bouncing around, you're hitting a bunch of stuff. What they think happened was that his PAL device fell through the hole into the structure. So when they were looking to come out, they think that Dupey heard a PAL device and thought somebody was down in there and went in to search for that guy as his crew came out. And the place had like a big industrial oven. Somehow, when he tried to open that oven, there was some sort of explosion that blew his mask off. And he was calling for help. They were having a little bit of trouble opening a door in the rear of the building that was actually right where he was at. And there are reports. I mean, there are guys that were on scene of that incident who remember hearing him calling for help on the TAC channel and stuff like that. Actually, one of my instructors in the drill tower told us the story about being on scene of that incident. And by the time they found him, he had just been in that smoky environment for too long and succumbed to what probably was the smoke.
It's a crazy situation when it gets to there. Where we had was it episode 62, the Vallarta fire?
Yeah,
and he really goes in depth explaining like how confusing it can get with all the communication on the radio. If you guys want to check that out, it's the same kind of situation.
Fires are chaotic, man. It's really like trying to rein in the chaos in these things and try to keep some sort of span of control, especially I would imagine, being a chief in charge or a command person in charge of a big incident like that, especially when you have a collapse or you have firefighters missing and stuff like that, just how stressful and crazy that is.
And that's considering that you do so much preparation, so much drilling. There's standard operating procedures for everything you can imagine, pre-incident planning for every building. Yeah. Everything's supposed to be laid out, and it still can just be madness.
Yeah. Anything can happen, man.
Yeah.
These are unpredictable things. You try to do the things just like you listed there to mitigate that and try to keep, when crazy things happen, at least you have some sort of control. But sometimes things just go, the Boyd Street incident is a perfect example of that. Sometimes things just go crazy and you have to, okay, stop, time out. What's going on? Where is everybody? And that's why we have, PARs and cars, where you hey, each company commander, make sure that all your guys are good. And then when you're done with that, hey, I need to know every company to check in. Let me know that your company
count heads.
Is good. But yeah, like being at 57s and having that Dupey story. And just like you said, man, it wasn't that long ago.
It was right when we were,
it was right when we were first starting to try to get on the job when that happened. And so it was a fresh thing. So then
there hadn't been a death on LAFD for like 30 years or something before that. 25 years or something before that, I think.
Yeah. No, the helicopter crash.
That was around the same time though.
Yeah. I think that was like within.
But before that, there was like 15 years because the guy that died at the Proudbird.
Yeah.
That was
Ben Pinnell.
Yeah.
But then you hear about these stories, like, I was coming through, going through South Bay, and you hear about this guy dying, and you're when you're in that world of coming up and trying to get hired, like most of the people listening to this podcast, you hear about that stuff, right? But then you work at the fire station, and you're like walking the halls, and like you think about that shit, man. Like, damn, man, this dude was like, this call went out at 2:20 in the morning, like this dude would like just had dinner with his crew, like the rest of us. Like we're giving Cap a bunch of shit about whatever, his, he farted in the TV room or something like that, like just boy club stuff. Yeah. And then you go to this incident that's a fire that I'm sure everyone was like pumped about. Sweet, we got a fire, and you're all pumped up and the adrenaline's pumping and you're going to this place. And then boom, he's gone, just like that. Always tripped me out. Like, fuck, man, if it could happen to him, it could happen to me, it could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
Then you go by like the building, you see the building, and it's just a fucking nothing building.
Yeah.
It's just a gray 1-story little nothing. And you think to yourself like, God, man, this guy had a wife and kids and like, what were we saving in this place? That he actually lost his life for. So that stuff kind of weighs on you. Like, and you think about that. Sometimes that creeps in. Like, what is the point? What is the point of like this? What would be the point? If I died, like what would Bernie think is a point of me like saving this building if there's nobody in there? You know what I mean? You start thinking about that shit.
Mm-hmm.
Then you'll get like a fire and you pull up and the smoke's fucking billowing out of this place and you're like, oh, we got a fire going, and you're like, damn, this building looks like that building that Dupey died in. You know what I mean?
Shit,
and
I know, dude.
And so like there have been, I can distinctly remember two fires while I was at 57s pulling up and thinking to myself like
damn, this is it.
This is the same type of building. This is the same exact type of building, dude. Mm-hmm. And you see the like ugly ass smoke coming in. By this time you've been to some fires, you know what like good healthy smoke and like shitty, brown, nasty, uneven smoke looks like, right? And that's in the back of your head, man. And like, I'm not religious at all, but I'll be like, I remember like going in and thinking like, please, fuck, please protect me. Here we go, and you go in and do it.
That's got to be replicated at different stations for all kinds of guys.
Oh, yeah.
Guys at 9s after the Boyd Street. It's going to probably see the Boyd Street. That's probably see that building over and over.
Absolutely, dude. Even when you hear of, but then that's kind of what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
is it's not only the drilling every Saturday or Sunday that we do that makes us good. It's not the studying that we do, beforehand in the drill tower and stuff like that. It's not just that stuff that makes us good. It's the errors that other people make too. It's the reason why when something goes bad at a fire, immediately they put out a report about it, right? You'll get a green sheet out that breaks down what happened. You might get a safety notice on something. If something happened with one of the rigs, you get a fucking an emergency safety notice. Hey, this happened. You know what I mean?
Don't they even put those training breakdowns in the grapevine, like in the magazine?
I have seen those,
right?
every once in a while. But yeah, it's a way we learn. Not only do we learn from other people's mistakes, but just like I said before, the department's very reactionary. So we get a lot of policies and shit from people making mistakes and the department going, oh, we don't want that to happen again. So we're going to change this completely. Another story that came up when I was thinking about these line of duty deaths and stuff was a firefighter named Jamie Foster.
Yeah, I didn't remember this.
So Jamie Foster, I actually knew before we got hired.
Okay.
So Jamie Foster's a female. She's the first probationary firefighter and the first female firefighter to die in the line of duty. I want to say she was in the class after mine, and I was in my second, maybe my third house when this happened. She was a first house rookie. She was an LVN at Northridge Roscoe.
Okay.
When I did my paramedic clinical time at Roscoe, she was one of the nurses that I worked with closely, like side by side with, helping start IVs and pushing medications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Really cool girl, fit, wanted to be a firefighter. We talked about all that, when I was there. Just really cool. Then when we were going through like getting hired and stuff, there were little like clinics and stuff like that the department would put on, like physical ability clinics and stuff like that, that I would go to, and I would see her there. Hey, what's up, Jamie? What's blah, blah, blah. Then I wind up getting hired. And then, dude, I remember like it was yesterday. I was driving. I was off duty. And Brian Franco, who's a classmate of mine, he's a captain now, called me. And he goes, dude, we lost someone today. And I was like, what the fuck? I was thinking he was saying our class, I'm just like, who?
Right.
And he goes, oh, it's a girl named Jamie Foster. And the name clicked, but I couldn't really think of who she was. I go, God, the name sounds familiar. What happened was we used to, anytime we backed the engine, well, first of all, back in the day, I mean, just like you guys can know, if you think about firefighters going down the street, you probably can imagine and picture a firefighter standing on the back of the fire engine, hanging on to, standing on the tailboard and hanging on to the back as you go down the road to the fire station. That's how they used to do things, right? Yeah. Even our dad was one of the firefighters. They were still doing that when our dad got on the job.
Yep.
You jumped on, you had your coat sitting in the a supply hose in the back, and you'd jump on the tailboard and they'd fucking take off, and you'd be throwing your coat on and buckling it, right? And you're supposed to have a safety strap on there, but nobody ever wore it. And, you're holding your buddy as he's buttoning his coat and all that stuff, right? And, people fell off the tailboard, there'd be, there are a couple instances of guys, the engine would take off and the guy would fall off and he'd be laying there in the apron of the fire station, and the other, pumps honking behind him, get the hell out of the way, so they could go to this fire. I mean, it's just how crazy it was.
Yeah.
But enough people got injured where they decided, hey, we're not going to ride the tailboard to fires anymore. But when we back the engines, there's a button on the side back there that rings a bell to the driver. One bell is stop, right? 2 bells is go forward, 3 bells is back up. Okay. So you would jump on the tailboard, hang on, facing backwards, one hand with your thumb on the button, make sure it's all clear back there, and give them 3 bells. That's how the engineer would know it's clear back up, right? And then if something were to happen, boom, you lay on that button to give them a stop, right? So they had a fire, and the engine was trying to back down the street out of where their spot was. And she jumped up onto the tailboard to back them up, gave the 3 bells. They started backing. And somehow, some way in that instance, as the engine was backing, she either passed out or fell or something, fell off of the tailboard, and the engine ran her over. the duals, and then the front wheels, and the engineer didn't know until he saw her in the windshield ahead.
See, I do not remember that at all.
Terrible, man. Terrible. Her crew did CPR on her and everything, but she succumbed to those injuries. You can imagine getting run over by a fire engine. And because of that incident, we don't ride on the tailboard at all anymore. There are other things that have happened with guys on the tailboard.
But that's like the last tailboard incident.
That was
that
like
closed the books
the
on
one.
anything
Yeah,
with
we
the
had
tailboard now.
the one Dad was involved with the 58s, where the guy I've been trying to get him to come on the podcast too. He's got a lot of responsibilities outside, but same thing. He was on the tailboard, and the engineer that was backing in, where the pump usually parks in the back, the engine had moved back because they were working on it, and he didn't see him there. So he gunned it to go back in his spot and rammed into, basically squished this guy between the two engines.
The legs. Yeah.
So there have been plenty of instances where this happened. The Jamie Foster incident is the reason why we don't ride the tailboard anymore, even when we're backing. They actually designed the fire engines now with the same kind of button, but it's on a long cord. You pull it out of the compartment so you can stand off to the side, and you're not actually back there on the tailboard or behind the engine.
Man, that is crazy.
But yeah,
that engineer just has to
that
go
poor guy,
on with
man.
his life, man. Yeah,
that poor guy had that happen, and then man, it just that's just another thing. That's like
you never know.
You never know, and it's like this girl that I knew. You know what I mean? So anytime it's somebody that you actually know, it feels a little bit closer to home, and you think about all the times that you've been on the tailboard, you know what I mean? And you don't even think of something like that happening, you know? And then, but it's just like I said before, like those types of things and those types of incidents really make you think about yourself, and it I hate to say it like helps you, but it does, man. It helps you to become a more well-rounded and more careful firefighter.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I remember when the Granite Mountain Hotshots perished, in that fire in Arizona. I was at 61
This was
when that
19 guys at the same time, right?
19 guys at the same time. They were a hotshot crew. They were fighting a wildland fire in Arizona. They were ordered to hike down to this one area to clear some brush or do some work down there. And so they had a lookout that was up, in a different area. The rest of the crew hiked down, and essentially the wind completely changed direction on them. And they got caught right in the path of this fast moving wildfire that ran them over, basically. 19 guys perished. The one survivor was the lookout that they had in a different position that was looking out and actually radioed to them that there was a problem. They just couldn't get out in time. But one of the firefighters that perished in that fire, one of the Granite Mountain Hotshots was Kevin Wojcik, who actually went to South Bay Fire Academy or El Camino Fire Academy with our good friend Petey Montero, who we've had on the podcast. He's a coach for the Dodgers now. It's a really great podcast if you guys want to go back and listen to that. But Petey
he talks about Kevin on the episode. It's episode 19.
Petey went through paramedic school, and he went through, Fire Academy, and, was actually hired with the Long Beach Fire Department. But when he went through El Camino Fire Academy, he went through with Kevin Wojcik. And, you go through these events with people, or these things with people, like the El Camino Fire Academy, or it was South Bay Fire Academy when we went through it.
Yeah.
And you develop a brotherhood, man. Even something like that.
Become boys. It's hard.
Yeah, you become boys. You go through this thing together, and you get to know people and their families and stuff like that. And especially Petey being so personable and, being that guy who's just fucking friends with everybody. I remember him calling me when that went down, and just I could hear how much he was hurting in his voice, and that he'd been crying. And I was feeling it too, man, when you think about especially when you train in wildland and stuff like that, and you train like getting into your fire shelter and stuff like that. It's scary to think about. And when you go through some of those classes,
having to deploy it
and seeing how fast those fires move, hearing people that have been burned in wildland fires talk about, their experience and what the recovery is like and stuff like that. It's fucking scary. Yeah. On top of wildland firefighting just being exhausting to begin with, you know what I mean?
The worst part of the job.
So I was already feeling it, hearing about the fire and stuff like that. And then I didn't know that, Petey knew this kid, Kevin. And then so he called me and he was, I just don't know what to make of this, like I don't like my brain is just like, and he's telling me all this stuff. And I just told him, I go, Petey, look, dude, all throughout my career and all throughout coming up, there have been old timers that have sat me down and dropped fucking knowledge on me, right? Hey, dude, don't do this because this could happen. And it's shit that I never even thought about, right?
Yeah.
Don't do this because this, I go, this is something, and this is when he was still like actively trying to be a fireman. I go, this is one of those things, man, that you're going to have in your history and your emotions. And it's just going to be canon to you as a firefighter that, when you go to a wildland firefighter, it's going to affect your safety at these things, man. Mm-hmm. It's going to affect making sure that you have all your, your lookouts and all the watch out things that they teach you in wildland firefighting. Everything, you have all those things in place because what is the worst that can happen, So where you might go to something that looks like it's not a big deal or whatever, and people might be, laughing and scratching and fucking around and stuff and not really giving the respect to the fire that it should be. You're going to be that guy that's going, hey, tighten up, man. We need to fucking focus. We need a lookout up here. You're going to be the one tighten everybody up. And it's going to be because of Kevin Wojcik, right? I go, that's what this needs to turn into for you, man. It's heartbreaking, I know, and grieve, man, and cry if you need to. But ultimately, you have to look at this as something that is going to make you a better firefighter in the end. And it's something that you're going to pass down to future firefighters below you, Kevin's sacrifice. It's what's really going to sink it home for you. And that's kind of how I've looked at these things throughout the years. We talk about South Bay Fire Academy. Richard Tucker.
Yeah.
One
of our classmates.
We went through South Bay Fire Academy with Richard Tucker, who's one of our classmates, and he was older dude. He was in his 40s when
we went
through South Bay Fire Academy. He was an older guy.
There were two older guys that went through it with us because we were young, dude.
Yeah.
I think 20.
Yeah, I was 19.
Yeah.
And Richard was already older at that point. He always wore these rainbow suspenders.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
That's right. And he kept wearing those, even when we were on the LAFD. He
kicked ass. He went all the way through it with us. Not everybody that started finished.
Not everybody that started finished.
Richard got through it with us.
And he had a great attitude. He was just a super, super nice guy.
Yeah, cool guy.
But he had a stroke. He was in his late 50s. And he was actually working, not in my same battalion, but if you just go up PCH a little bit, Fire Station 69, on the West Coast here. And he had like a mini stroke that kind of affected him, gave him a deficit on one side. And the doctor told him that he probably was not going to be able to be a firefighter anymore. And that's what he was. You know what I mean? Like that was like his whole life. It was what he switched gears in the middle of his life to become, and he loved it, man.
Yeah, I think he did. It was a contractor or something before that.
And just like you felt how much he loved it when you were with him at the fire station, when you were I'd run into him on calls, and he just always had the biggest smile on his face. He loved it, dude. He loved
just to make that commitment to go to South Bay when you're 40.
Oh yeah, dude.
Quit what you're doing and just go 3 nights a week and kick your own ass.
Yeah. But he got this news and it was too much for him to take, man. He went and he shot himself. He committed suicide. And even those things, man, you think about like that to me. Got me really thinking about like my work-life balance, and how much energy and effort do I really give to this job that, would be better served in my personal life, my family and my wife and my kids,
totally,
and stuff like that. If something were to happen to me outside medically, would it devastate me to the point where I don't see any other option,
You think about that for any job, but now you're considering a job that you could die in.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So when I think of death and people dying on the job and stuff like that, different deaths have affected me different ways, man. It made me think about my life in different ways. With Dexter, just passing away, really got me thinking about like the legacy that he left behind with the firefighters below him. I cannot even begin to tell you how many guys and gals benefited from Dexter's help to get hired, and just like his knowledge on the job. And I point him out even more so than other people because Dexter was one of those guys that worked every single day. Like, no bullshit. Like,
Yeah, I remember
worked
you talked about him a couple episodes ago, and that you were saying he was like 300 days a year.
easily,
like that.
dude.
Yeah, it's
Easily.
crazy,
If you
man.
needed a day. So not only was he this great guy with this world of experience, and all these like tidbits of knowledge to share, but he dropped those seeds all over the city. You know what I mean? He worked everywhere. He worked in the valley. So it's like anywhere you went, usually like the people know this guy in this battalion, maybe the battalions around it, but like everybody knew Dexter.
A lot of local celebrities in LAFD.
Oh yeah,
Like,
dude, for sure.
He was worldwide.
He was, dude. He was. And everybody respected him a ton. And, you get to the funeral. And even like on our TikTok, I posted a little tribute to him from being at the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of people commented on it. Like, hey man, I've known this guy my whole life. He's an amazing person, great person, and stuff like that. So I don't know, man. Death sucks. It's a scary thing. But you have to give it a healthy, make sure that it has a healthy effect on you as a firefighter when it happens around you.
Yeah.
Like, you can't dwell on it. You have to take what you can that's going to make you a better person, a better, firefighter, or maybe a better father or something like that, depending on, the person's story or whatever. And learn from it, just like every other thing that happens on this job or mistake that you make. You learn from it, you tuck that into your bag of tricks, and it either makes you better or it doesn't. But hopefully, everything you learn from everybody that you pass along this job makes you a better firefighter, better person.
Exactly. And then you can pass that knowledge on to others. Good talk.
Yeah. You guys can follow me on at Danny Gonzo 34 on Instagram and Twitter.
Follow me at Ben9Humor, Ben number 9 Humor, like benign tumor on Instagram and Twitter. Follow our show at PRC Pod on Instagram and Twitter, or at PRC Podcast on TikTok. You can also email us, contactprcpod@gmail.com. We are getting the Shopify up soon, and you'll be able to buy merch. We have the hot new t-shirts, decals, or other things down the pipe. All right. Yep. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing the show. Danny, you got anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.